Zotos Professional presents Perm Procedure. During this segment, we will be reviewing the 10 steps to perming. If each step is done properly, we will achieve a successful service. What happens sometimes is when we're in a salon, we start taking shortcuts. And you take a little shortcut here and a little shortcut there, and before you know it, we end up with unsuccessful chemical services. So let's start to review the 10 basic steps. Step 1. Shampoo the hair. Why is it important that we shampoo the hair prior to giving a perm service? We want to make sure that we clarify the hair, that we remove any type of residue or buildup that might be on the hair. We want to prepare it so that when the perm solution is applied, it can very readily be absorbed. We recommend using a clarifying shampoo prior to the service. Step 2. Towel blot the hair. Why is it important that we towel blot prior to wrapping? The hair has just been shampooed. It's filled with water, and we know that the hair is like a sponge. It absorbs, but just like a sponge, the hair can only hold a certain amount of moisture. If it's filled with water, when we apply the solution, the amount of solution that gets in is going to be diluted. Not enough solution is going to be able to get in to do the job. In order for a permanent wave to stay curly, we have to break down the majority of the bonds. If we don't break down the majority of the bonds, we're going to end up with a curl that either isn't true to rod size or that's going to relax very quickly. We want to leave approximately 20% moisture in the hair, so the hair is damp but it's not soaking wet. Also, be sure to check the amount of water that you're using as you're wrapping. I know some people become what I call water bottle junkies, where they're spraying the hair constantly as they're wrapping. This again is going to add too much moisture in the hair and end up diluting your solution. Step 3. Wrap with minimal amount of tension. When using traditional chemistries, acid, alkalines, or exothermics, we always want to wrap with a minimal amount of tension. Because with those technologies, the tighter you wrap, the less curl you will achieve. And the reason for that is if we have that hair wrapped really, really tight around a rod and we apply the solution, the hair tries to expand in order to absorb it. If there is not room for it to expand, it's going to either create breakage or there won't be enough room for the solution to get inside and do the job, thus creating less curl. It's almost like if we were going to go to lunch and you had on a really tight belt. You wouldn't be able to eat a lot. But the minute you loosen that belt, suddenly there's obviously room for dessert. Same thing with the hair. If it's wrapped too tight around the rod, you apply the solution, it tries to open, but it can't open enough to absorb enough solution to break down the bonds. Now, an area that we see oftentimes that has a tendency of being straighter is the top crown area. And the reason for this is because of the way we wrap it. If you've ever noticed on the back and the sides, if you pull too hard, applying too much tension while you're wrapping, your customer will move with you, not allowing you to achieve a lot of tension. But on the top of the head, because of our arm position and the fact that the client is not going to be moving with us, we have a tendency of wrapping the top tighter. The tighter we wrap, the less curl we're going to achieve. If you need a stabilizer to hold the rod in place, what we recommend is that for every 2 rods, you place 2 stabilizers. They're all the way at the ends of the rod, not coming in contact with hair. If you try to connect 3 rods together, you're going to be applying too much tension. We recommend for a stabilizer, take 2 end papers, twist it together, and use that. It'll hold the rod in place, but once you apply the solution, it becomes very flexible and doesn't apply any tension to the hair. Step 4. Mix chemicals thoroughly. When using a perm that has an activator, an example would be an acid wave, we want to make sure that we mix it thoroughly so that we get even distribution of the chemicals. Because as in an acid wave, in the waving lotion bottle, we have conditioners, buffering agents. In the actual activator, we have what's called the reducing agent. The reducing agent is the part that goes in and actually breaks down the bonds. In the activator is also an ingredient called glycerol. Glycerol is a byproduct of glycerin. I'm sure you've heard of glycerin in things like hand creams, body lotions. They're used as a softening agent, and that's what we use it for in the perm, so that you get a soft finish feel to the hair. Now, keep in mind that the glycerin or glycerol is a very heavy, oily substance, and it likes to cling to the inside of the activator bottle. So we recommend that you shake the activator, thus breaking that glycerol away from the sides of the bottle. Shake it thoroughly and then mix it in with your waving lotion. Once you have it in with the waving lotion, we want to make sure that you mix that thoroughly, because now you're trying to mix an oily substance, that glycerol, with a liquidy substance, the conditioners and buffering agents. We want to make sure that we get even distribution of those chemicals, so shake it thoroughly. Get in the habit of shaking everything, even your neutralizer, because neutralizer has conditioning agents that can settle to the bottom. So get in the habit of shaking all bottles thoroughly before applying. Step 5. Apply solution slowly. To open the bottle, we prefer that you use some sort of T-pin or a tack, because if you slice the tip open with a razor or shear, the hole gets too large. The minute you tip it over, you lose control. Application is all about control. We want to apply slowly and evenly, close to the head. If you apply too quickly, the hair doesn't even have time to absorb and it's running off. So you want to apply slowly and evenly, close to the head. Watch the hair. The hair is going to tell you things. When you first apply, it's very wet, very shiny looking. After you've completed one section, before going to the next section, check out the first couple of rods that you applied to. At this point, they may be dry looking. And what that hair is saying is, okay, I absorbed all that, now give me some more. When all the hair stays very wet and very shiny looking, that's when you know that it's had enough. It's full. Stop applying. This point is when you want to take your cotton off from around the hairline. We all know that if cotton is saturated with solution and it lays on the hairline, it can cause irritations. But another thing, cotton is a thief. If we have that cotton tucked underneath the rods, it's going to steal solution. If there's not enough solution, we don't break down enough bonds, we're going to end up with a weak curl. This is what happens sometimes when people come back and complain that the area around the hairline seems like the curl isn't as firm as it should be. It didn't have enough solution, didn't break down enough bonds, therefore has a weaker curl. So at this point, remove that first piece of cotton. If you feel more comfortable having cotton on during processing, what we recommend is take a second piece of cotton, mist it gently with some water, place it low on the forehead and across the ears. Do not tuck it underneath the rods. Nothing absorbent should come in contact with the hair during processing or neutralizing. Step 6. Process with a processing cap. The purpose of the processing cap is to keep the moisture in and the air out. We want to keep the moisture in because we never want any chemical to dry out on the hair. That can be very damaging. We want to keep the air out because every time that air comes in contact with perm solution, it slows it down. It retards the action. So we want to make sure that when we put the processing cap on, that it's sealed and it's airtight, creating the perfect environment for the perm to process in. We recommend that you use the processing cap in the box as opposed to a shower cap, because the shower cap has elastic around it. That elastic is going to work the same way that cotton does. It becomes saturated, it's laying on the hairline, and it can cause irritations. Also, with the shower cap, you can't really get it airtight. Step 7. Do not test curl a no test curl perm. If you're using a perm that is a no test curl, do not take a test curl. You're interrupting the processing and you're going to get a false reading. Let's talk about how that happens. You've just placed the processing cap on the head to create the perfect environment for the perm to process in. It's being kept nice and moist, and the air is being kept away from it. If you decide to take a test curl, the first thing that you have to do is remove the processing cap. As you remove the processing cap, immediately air hits the solution and slows it down, thus retarding the action of it. You take your test curl and you look at it and you think, no, it's not ready. But the reason is because the solution, the weight of the solution is holding it down, so you're not getting a true reading. So anytime that you take a test curl on a no test curl perm, you're interrupting the processing and you're going to get a false reading. So if you've chosen the proper chemistry for the proper hair type, always follow manufacturer's directions for the best end result. If it's a no test curl perm, do not take a test curl. Step 8. Thoroughly rinse the waving lotion. Rinse, 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 rinse. According to manufacturer's directions, we recommend a 5-minute rinse with warm water. As warm as possible and yet still comfortable for your customer. 5-minute rinse is recommended for chin length or shorter. For every additional inch below the chin, we add another minute to our rinsing. But we want to make sure that we thoroughly rinse all the solution from the hair. Because what happens if we don't thoroughly rinse? The hair still has solution in it. Our next step is going to be to add the neutralizer to the hair, to apply the neutralizer. If perm solution and neutralizer come together, there's a chemical reaction that occurs and heat develops. That direct heat on the hair is going to be very drying to the hair. We also know that neutralizer has a very low volume of peroxide. It can't lift color on its own. But if the solution comes in contact with the neutralizer, creating heat with the peroxide is going to start lifting color. So 2 things that'll happen if you don't thoroughly rinse is you'll get dryness and you'll get a lightening effect. The third thing that happens is post-perm odor. It's going to smell because the perm solution is left inside. We didn't rinse it. Then we apply the neutralizer, which closes the cuticle. Anytime that either heat or water is applied to the hair, the cuticle is going to slightly open and out comes that post-perm odor. So you want to make sure that you thoroughly rinse. The easiest way to tell if the solution is thoroughly rinsed, smell the hair. If you smell any traces of perm solution or ammonia, rinse it longer. Also, check the bubbles in the sink. If the bubbles are clear, it generally means that the solution has been thoroughly rinsed. If the bubbles in the sink are still cloudy, there's still solution in the hair. Rinse it longer. Step 9. Blot, blot, blot. Towel blotting. Take each rod, surround it with the towel, and gently squeeze it. Go to the next rod, surround it with the towel, and gently squeeze it. When you think it's sufficiently blotted, go back, get a paper towel, and do the same thing. When you surround it and gently squeeze it, if there's a line of moisture on the paper towel, there's still way too much water in the hair. Go back and blot it more. Now I know that this sounds like it's going to be very time consuming, but the number one reason for redos, nationwide, the number one reason for redos is insufficient towel blotting. There's so much water left in the hair that when the neutralizer is applied, it becomes very diluted and cannot lock the curl in place. So thoroughly towel blot. At this point, you do not want to put them under a dryer. A dryer surface dries, pushing the moisture deeper into the center of the rod. Who's at the center of the rod? Those porous little ends. They're going to hold on to the water. They're not going to get neutralized properly, and therefore you'll have straighter ends. Be sure to thoroughly towel blot. Step 10. Use all the neutralizer. Neutralizing. Be sure to shake your neutralizer to make sure that you get even distribution of the conditioning agents and the neutralizer within the bottle. Once you shake it, open it with a T-pin or a tack and apply slowly and evenly, making sure that each hair strand is thoroughly saturated. As soon as the hair is really wet and shiny looking, stop applying. You should be using the same amount of neutralizer as you did perm solution. to thoroughly saturate. Neutralizer has a big job to do. If you think about it, most perms take approximately 20 minutes to process. That means it takes 20 minutes for the perm solution to get in and break down the bonds. But now let's look at the neutralizer. We apply the neutralizer and leave it on for 5 minutes. In 5 minutes, it has to reharden all the bonds into its new position. So we want to make sure that we prepared the hair by towel blotting, apply the neutralizer slowly and evenly, thoroughly saturating. Apply the neutralizer according to manufacturer's directions. Remember, you can over-neutralize as well as you can over-process, thus damaging the hair. If each step is done properly, we will achieve a successful service.